There has been a major shakeup in Venezuela in the last 24 hours. And now, before the mainstream media in America gets its filthy, lying tentacles into the story, I would like to get ahead of it and explain for you what has exactly truly happened. Now, the story is this: that our good friend, Mr. Tariq El Aissami, who recently stepped down from his position as vice president, has taken control of a new governmental organization. And I kind of kick myself because I should have seen this coming. What's happened is they have taken control of the suppliers of water and of food and other basic necessities in the country. Now, the anti-socialist crowd up here in America are going to just, and these are the people that are, of course, lying to you about the sanctions, lying to you about the starvation, lying to you about everything else. What they're going to try to say is that they're just doubling down and they're going to increase the suffering of the people. Nothing could be further from the truth in this case. What's happened is this. You see, after you have one of these events where your country has basically been torn apart from without, and anarchy has taken control in certain regions, you have to step back in and restore order. To understand this from an American perspective, I think this is a great place to start. You see, there was a time in this country when we decided to ban all sale of alcohol, and of course it gave rise to the mafia and violent intervention in what was just a normal everyday business of the buying and selling of beer, wine, and liquor. And we can see the same thing here. This meme shows how the exact same thing has happened with the making of drugs illegal. When they announced it, they gave everybody lead time. And so there were groups of people that took advantage and stocked up on this stuff. And today they would be called speculators, meaning that they knew that what they were investing in now was going to reap huge dividends later. What everybody thinks about anarchy is that this is what it's going to look like. That it's just going to be a group of teenagers and just surviving their way through the wilderness and living off the land, and things will be so much better without the government involved, and we'll get back to nature, and the true preppers and survivalists will be the ones that make it out on the other side. When that's never the case in these situations, this is what happens when there's anarchy. The biggest, meanest, nastiest, most rotten, filthiest people are the ones that will come bubbling up to the surface. And the ones willing to do the absolute worst things imaginable will be the survivors. They always are. This is what happens in every society when this happens. I don't care who you are or where you're from, whether you're Spanish, English, anywhere in the world, doesn't matter. And I thought this would be the best picture to illustrate that. You'll have this too. This is from Jericho, where you will have people in a town that are trying to act like decent folks and work together, but there will always be those that will come in from the outside to make life hell. If anybody doesn't know what this is, go Google Jericho. It was a TV series from a couple years ago, and I'm sure a lot of you know who it is, but it was basically about nuclear attack on the U.S. Red Dawn meets The Walking Dead without the zombies, I guess, would be the best way to talk about it. But the point is this: they have to go in now, and all of the people that have taken control of all of the food supplies and all of the water infrastructure, the mafias, now have to be rooted back out. Because that's what's happening as they try to rebuild and as they try to build a society back from what was brought into anarchy in certain regions. They're going to have to step in and take control and say, you can't charge, as soon as you get your supply of X, Y, and Z. Because when people suffer shortages, the next time they see, that thing available, they'll buy all of it. And people who sell that know it. So they'll go into deals with people. Say, look, the next time, you get your supply of, let's say, flour, You let me know a day ahead of time and I'll give you, 20% over what you're allowed to charge on the shelf for it. Okay. Now, who would not want to do that? You don't have to deal with a whole bunch of customers. You don't have to hire somebody to run a cash register. You just moves on. But then people get wind of that, and then there's that guy who bought all that, then he's going to go try to sell it on the black market. Now multiply this over everything that you would need to survive. You can't run a country that way. And you also can't apply the rules that apply in the United States to a little place like Venezuela. You also have to remember, we have, the ATF and the FBI, and we have military armed police forces every 5 miles in this country to keep that from happening. Whether you like it or not, that's the case. That's what keeps this kind of thing from happening here. Fear, there's no sense of decency stopping that. And so what they're trying to do now is they're trying to go in and find the guys controlling these mafias and get rid of them and go into these stores and say, okay, you're going to put the items on the shelf. You're going to price them at this price, and you are going to allow people to come in here and buy and shop like normal, just like you would do on every other normal day prior to this event. There's going to be nobody hoarding. There's going to be nobody coming in and buying everything up and then running a mafia out of the back of a pickup truck 5 miles down the road. It's not going to happen. And that's what's happening now in Venezuela. That's what Mr. Isami is doing with the help of the military. They're going in and they're restoring order to these regions that the Colombian right-wing paramilitaries have destroyed. I mean, imagine what it would be like if mafias controlled everything you needed to survive and to live. And if everything in this country truly was capitalistic, where somebody could go in and buy up, all of everything all the time, and then reprice it and sell it down the road with no license and no storefronts and the basic things you needed to survive. Now our economy is so huge, and the abilities of places like Walmart and Meijer and Piggly Wiggly and all these big grocery stores, to prevent that, is just a function of the size of our economy. You have to remember that is a country of 30 million people. It's not even as big as California. And economy-wise, nowhere near as big as California. Imagine total anarchy in the, let's say, state of Ohio, where they were their own country. How a wealthy person could come in and take over the entire thing and hold the entire population hostage just by simply controlling the food supplies. And this has been covered before. There was a whole report on this. And this was one of the goals of the people that tried to take down Venezuela. This is what they thought would happen. The Colombian Mafias thought for sure that it was going to be free-day recess. See, right now, there was supposed to be someone else in charge of Venezuela. Just like you say, right now, there was supposed to be Hillary Clinton for president, but another thing for another day. Something very different is happening. And there are people that are in retreat right now, and they're going to be back. You mark my words. And the cryptocurrency is the way around this. Oh, and don't get me started on that. What else they're doing down there in Venezuela is when you go to use your, what they call the carnet de patria, that card that the government gets you so that you don't have any money speculators coming in and overcharging for exchange rates. Well, the guys that own the businesses that are part of the mafias, they're charging like 5% or 10% or 15% if you use that card. And pocketing the difference. And that's what the government's going to say, nah, sorry, you're not going to do that. It's like people going in with their food, they go get $200 a month in food stamps and they go sell them to somebody on the street for $100 cash. We have that in this country. So that's what's happening today. The government is attempting to step in and protect the most vulnerable in their society from the predators and from the thugs and from the mafias in Colombia that have tried to take down Venezuela. So hopefully those pictures helped out a little bit so you can understand what's really happening. And honestly, there's another story going on now we'll talk about with the ELN, but the ELN is basically trying to keep their country, Colombia, from turning into Brazil. And if you don't know what's happening in Brazil, it is an epic, epic failure of hyper-capitalism. Because down here, when you let pure capitalism run amok, like I said, the absolute worst in society comes to bear, and this is what you get. That's why they have to have the military patrolling their streets. So we'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.